Maybe I'll call on Sam then too, just to say a few words when I'm done.
I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Hi,
Maybe
hi,
before
David
we go to
Blaska.
Allison.
Hi, Alex.
Yeah.
Good to see you all. Um,
Hey, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Blaska.
Good morning.
Morning, Professor Burden.
Hey, David. How are you? All right. Alex, good to see you. Mary Lou, thanks for coming.
Jonathan,
All right.
Well, this is the third
So
time in 3 days I've seen John Ward.
lucky you, David.
I know. He gave a little presentation yesterday at Rotary. It was really good on refugees and the work that he's doing in a Rotary committee in Milwaukee.
Thanks, David.
You bet.
All right. As folks are still trickling in, I think we can get started. So, hi, welcome to the WisACT February Network meeting. Thank you so much for making the time to join us today. We're really excited to see you all. We have a little bit of a smaller group today, which I think will be great for what we're about to get into and what we're about to talk about. We're going to kick it off with some words from both David and Scott. The purpose of this meeting is to talk about what WisACT has done in the past year, how we're feeling about it, and how WisACT will be moving forward in the future. And we're looking for all of your questions, comments, concerns about basically the past, present, future of WisACT as the um, flyer for this meeting stated. So I'm going to turn it over to David and Scott, and they're going to give a few updates about some reflections on our 2024 work, and introducing the lovely folks from Whitburn, Sam and Mike, who have joined us today. So thanks, everyone.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for all the work you did over the past year with WisACT. We're deeply appreciative. We're moving into a new phase. We always thought that we would need to do this. Our support from the Carter Center, and we'll have Nathan Stock on the call momentarily. He's in a car somewhere driving. But the support from the Carter Center was always intended as seed money, as to sort of pilot a project in Wisconsin and in the 5 other states that Carter is working with democracy resilience networks like ours. And so we began working with the Whitburn Center last year for our listening sessions and our de-escalation trainings. And of course, I knew Mike. Scott knows Mike well, as he'll explain in a moment, and Sam. Mike used to write op-eds when I was an opinion journalist at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. I always thought, boy, he's a good op-ed writer. I'd like to know this guy. And I've had a chance to do that. Um, so we are in the midst of we have a contract signed, and it's not quite 100% official, but it will be shortly, of transitioning the program, the WisACT program, to the Whitburn Center. So Whitburn will be in charge of programming with our advice and help, and will become a program of Whitburn. I'm very excited about this for a number of reasons, not least because I think it lends stability to WisACT and the work that we're doing. And I think it opens up some new ways to reach more people, including students. Being on a campus, I think, will be invaluable to reach younger people. I think that's important. And I also think just having new ideas and new energy in the organization is also going to be helpful. So we want to talk a little more about what that can look like. And we also want to give plenty of time to you to hear from you about your feedback so far. We'll have a little bit from Allison in a moment on the survey results. We're grateful for your input there. But I want to turn it over to Scott and then to the Whitburn folks who are on the call with us today to have a few words. Thank you.
and thank you. Thanks, David. And I'd like to reiterate to those that are on today and those that aren't on, because this really has been a wonderful process involving many, many people throughout the state of Wisconsin. And without your work, not only wouldn't WisACT be where it is, but democracy is better served by what you have been doing. And those that haven't had a chance, look at the final report we did at the end of last year of the number of things that WisACT was able to accomplish, including there was very little talk of, uh, of not having a good election in the state of Wisconsin after this presidential race, which is not the case in a number of other states. Um, so thank you for the work you've done. Thank you for your participation in making democracy work. Um, just some background. Um, I am presently chair of the advisory board for the Whitburn Center. So I've, like David, have worked with Mike Ford for many years prior to his. I think it was prior to you. I don't know if even sure you were at Oshkosh when we were working on our dissertations in the same university, a similar program. Did
Mhm.
research that was similar to each other and presented at conferences on the joint research, to which he now needs a lot more for his publications being in academia than I do, and he's continued. So kudos to Mike. The Whitburn itself, just a little bit of background, and Sam and Mike may give some more, but it's relatively new. I think maybe 4 years now. I think we're going into the fourth year with the Whitburn Center at the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh. It is to look at what is often missed in what is occurring in government, and that is local government, and to create efficiencies and research with local government, which is how we were able to combine with WisACT work and our listening sessions and the focus groups. Because much of their research has been, I think, Mike, you're doing, I know Doug, in working with you, is doing school boards. I think you're working with a number of local groups and how organizations can be more effective. So when we did our listening sessions, interestingly, it was what local officials are feeling about what is happening with democracy and opinion leaders in the local community. And interestingly enough, the concern that many of us have with the direction of democracy is permeating local government as well, to the point of it's difficult to run nonpartisan now. We just want to take care of our community, but we're told we have to pick one party or the other. And we have to speak out on, we have to take positions on national issues. We don't care. We just want the pothole filled in our streets. Um, so there's a great deal of similarity with academic research and the work being done to support local governments and what WisAC wants to do in taking democracy to the grassroots, making sure it's local. And our goal from the start with this organization is not to build an organization, but to have a movement of people throughout the state that care about our institutions and care about democracy. And we think we've made good headway in the short period of time we've had with between 400 and 500 members of WisAC now, many of you very active with it. But just the training sessions we've gone through, the de-escalation trainings, which were run in conjunction with the Whitburn Center um, uh, and the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh affiliation, uh, were just, I thought, excellent. And I say it from a personal standpoint of having used the de-escalation when people have become quite excited on the political arena. And it's just, all I can say is, if you haven't, take some of these trainings and try it. It works. And I haven't had feedback, though, Allison, from the university of students going home and how they deal with their parents and relatives around the Thanksgiving table when there's differences in opinions. But I have heard from, in fact, one of the religious leaders that I've worked with in another state has said he's got problems in his own family and just how to deal with it. Uh, and I've suggested maybe he should go through some of the trainings that we've gone through as a group. So that's why we thought this was such a great fit in nonpartisan, pure research on creating greater efficiencies and creating faith in a democracy. So with that, what I'd like to do is just both Mike Ford, who's the Dr. Ford, who's the director of the Whitburn Center now, and Sam Larson, Dr. Larson, who is the associate director of the Whitburn Center right now. And if Mike, maybe you could take the lead and just say a few words about what you see coming down the line.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you. Thank you, Scott, or Dr. McCallum. We're being formal here. You gotta give him his due. I was on his dissertation committee. It was got by through, barely. No, Scott did wonderful. No, thank you very much for those kind words. We're very excited at the Whitburn Center to be taking on the WisACT project. As Scott mentioned, Whitburn Center was founded in 2021. It's an externally funded research center that's attached to the UW-Oshkosh Masters of Public Administration program. So if you don't know anything about the MPA program, basically we train folks that go and work in management positions in local government and the nonprofit sector primarily. So the focus of the Whitburn Center, I know I saw in the chat, I believe Allison was posting links to our website, which has our research, links to some of our events, etc. But I'd say the broad focus is showing that we can still govern here in Wisconsin. So as Scott said, I'm currently the director, and my colleague, Dr. Samantha Larson, is currently the research director and will be the incoming interim director of the center. Our work really focuses on five different areas. First, developing high-functioning governing boards. So that includes nonprofit governing boards, but city councils, school boards, other local governing boards. Increasing administrative capacity. We believe some of the best way, or one of the best ways to improve trust in government is to improve the competence of government. So we spend a lot of time working on improving administrative capacity. Facilitating intergovernmental and intersectoral cooperation. In other words, finding ways for local governments to work together, but also to work with nonprofit organizations and cooperate across different levels of government. Fiscal sustainability. If we can't fund government, if we can't fund our operations, we're not going to be successful. And then finally, building civic trust and increasing civic engagement. And effective democratic governance requires that citizens have trust in electoral institutions and processes, including local governments that are running the actual elections, as you all know. It also requires that we have trust in one another in a democracy and a willingness to engage in civic life. So in that regard, the goals of WisACT really align very well with both our mission, but also the broader operational work and the research we've done. We're also really confident that the WisACT network, along with our network of 600 plus MPA graduates, many of which are serving in leadership positions across Wisconsin, represent a natural synergy that will increase the impact of this WisACT project. And as was mentioned before by David, us being housed in an academic institution and having connections across the universities of Wisconsin, I think also represents a really strong opportunity for us to bring some of these concepts that we know can help build trust in elections and build trust in our civic institutions to folks during their formative years while they're at the university, and that can start building the next generation to rebuild some of the loss of trust we're seeing in government and in elections. So really excited to take this on, and I don't know if Dr. Larson has anything to add here about the Whitburn Center or her role, but if not, we're happy to answer questions as well.
Well, I'll pop in just briefly here. I think, Mike, you covered a lot of the high level kind of infrastructure. I'll just repeat that last year when we worked with WisACT, but with David and Scott and Nathan, to do the listening sessions across the state, and then those led to a report that we actually will be presenting on March 12th, a virtual presentation of that, Mike and I, and then I'll actually be presenting a similar report at, it's called the American Society for Public Administration National Conference in Washington, D.C. at the end of the month. So I'm excited to kind of promote the work that was done here in Wisconsin nationally at that conference. And I will actually throw in the chat registration link for folks if they want to attend our event on March 12th. But that was just a really incredible experience. I think that from that, the de-escalation trainings that were organized really, I think, it was great to see people come to those and people from throughout the community who are really interested and hungry for this work. And so it's been a really great experience so far working with everyone. I'm excited to get to know folks here as well as we transition things over. So please reach out. I already took a note from uh, Kristen, so we will be contacting you. But for anyone really that's on the call, as we move forward and continue this work, I'm excited to meet folks and work with all of you. Um, Another thing I'll mention on a little bit more of a personal level. Mike hit the professional things, but I've been at UWO since 2017. Came from Colorado, but I grew up in rural North Dakota. And a lot of my work, a lot of my research over the last 15 plus years has really focused on how to build more equitable and resilient communities. And so this work is really exciting to me. I'm very excited to be doing it in the state of Wisconsin. But I don't know why. I must just be nostalgic today, but I was thinking a lot about this meeting. And, growing up on a farm in rural North Dakota in the 80s and 90s, my parents were on different sides of the political aisle. And kind of some of my favorite memories from that time were very big debates at our kitchen table that sometimes got quite heated, but always ended with love and respect. And, when I think about the work that we're doing in kind of the formal academic setting, um, what I really love is being out in the community and talking with real people who, can also maybe think back to that time and kind of pine for this era where we weren't so polarized. And so I'm thrilled to be able to have the opportunity to dig into this more with all of you and to really continue the work with everyone. So I'll leave it there. Us academics can go on and on if no one cuts us off. So I'll stop there. But very excited to be kind of taking the torch and working with you all.
Thanks, Sam. I wonder if we can go next to Allison just for a couple of minutes. We asked you to fill out a survey, and we have some responses and a few results from that survey. So, Allison, maybe you could share that, and then I want to go to the to our members and hear what's on your minds.
Yeah, and starting with Kristen, because I see your hand and we'll come to you first, because I know you have something to say. So, yeah, we send out a survey to our members before ahead of this meeting. Don't worry or freak out if you didn't have time to fill out the survey because there's still more time and we're still looking for feedback. I'm going to share my screen really quickly and see if I can present these slides. So, our February network meeting survey results. First of all, 19 total responses. Scott, as the academic, was giving me a hard time for this, but I assured him maybe Professor Burden will get a laugh out of this, but it's a low N ethnographic study. So there's still a need for things like this in political science, I would argue. So 19 total responses. This is a snapshot of, I would say, our most engaged members. On the engagement scale from 1 to 5, almost all of our responses put a 4 or a 5 for WisACT. So this is really the folks that are like you guys, showing up to our network meetings, engaging with our newsletters. So it's a really good snapshot of how we're feeling, but we also need context from you all. So a snapshot of our most engaged members, and we're still searching for more input. This is the QR code to the survey. I'm also going to be sending it in the chat. It's a quick Google form. Will probably take you 3 to 5 minutes to fill out, and it'd be really helpful to get your feedback. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and scan that QR code. I'll give you a couple seconds. If not, again, the link will be in the chat in 1 second. All right, and moving to the responses that we fielded. So first, programming preferences. This is a pie chart of what WisACT activities and initiatives have been most valuable to our members. So as you see, the most popular of our events are our public speaking events. So this could be like our panel event in Kenosha with Urban Rural Action and the Bridging Divides Initiative and Secure Democracy, or our leader ethics panel in Madison. So those public facing speaker engagement events. And then next, folks seem to like our social media and newsletters. That's a good way to stay engaged on the day to day. You know, we're hitting your inboxes, your Facebook, your LinkedIn. So I'm glad to hear that folks were looking out for that. And then lastly, our training workshops ranked pretty high on what folks were appreciating. So I saw this as like listening. Well, listening sessions are actually separate in this pie chart, but like de-escalation trainings, like the one that we did, How to Survive Thanksgiving, the ones that we did with the Conflict Resolution Center, people seem to appreciate those. We also got some feedback on our Zoom meetings, but that kind of comes up in the later responses. But it seems like overall, folks are liking the training and the public facing events as our programming, and then want us to keep going with the newsletter and the social media in the meantime. Folks seem to be tapping into those things as well. So, ideas for the future. These are the three that I distilled from the majority of the responses. So, one being broadening the base of participants. This is something that we're always trying to do at WisACT, and it's the work that never stops, is how do we let people know that we exist and get people engaged with our programming. We've done this a lot on the student side this year, especially on UW-Madison's campus with the hiring of our intern, Lydia, but there's still so much more work to be done, and we're open to ideas and strategies for how you see this playing out in your community. But yeah, something that's always on our minds is broadening the base of participants. Number two would be educating the public about how democratic governance works. We've been talking a lot about this between David Scott and I, and also with Dr. Ford and Dr. Larson, of what does this look like? Does this look like us going into schools, and not us physically going into schools, but maybe developing a K through 12 education plan that can be given to schools to help kids grasp civics. But we've been talking about this a lot of how do we develop civically engaged students, maybe starting at the pre-college level. And then third, there was this idea for Braver Angels practical workshops in different communities. I saw we have Cameron Swallow in the call. Braver Angels is such a wonderful organization that has a host of resources and trainings available. So folks were pointing to them as a resource to utilize in the future. I also see this as like people like our de-escalation trainings more broadly, and these sort of trainings, people want to see them applied in different communities. So those were some of the ideas for the future, which are really exciting, and I would love to hear more about your responses if anyone would like to chime in a second here. But then our other question was, what would make you feel more connected and engaged with WisACT? I think a huge one that I'll admit I haven't thought about maybe as much as I should have, but more time to be able to attend online events. We have these webinars at noon. That's not always the easiest to work around if folks are working or in school. So how do we make online events, pop up at different times and different topics and make them more accessible to folks? Two, people are looking for more direction on how to be a local organizer. So leaning into providing resources to people that they can then bring into their communities to organize for democracy on the smallest of grassroots levels, which is what we're looking for. And then breakout rooms to talk to other organizations in the area and imagine how to work together was another response. So I kind of saw this as two ways. Like one, maybe breakout rooms in our meetings where we can connect with folks from other organizations to talk about things we can do for work, or more breakout rooms in situations like this where our members are all together. A lot of us are already involved in other organizations that touch on these topics. So how do we get people talking to each other more and less of the WisACT talking to members and more of members talking to each other framework? That's just a brief snapshot of the survey results. I'll leave us there, and I'll turn it maybe over to David to turn it over to the members, or straight to the members. I want to get to Kristen first, though.
Straight to the members. Go to Kristen.
Yes. Kristen,
Hi,
would love to hear
everybody.
what you have to say.
I think this is great news. I love the idea of putting this putting WisACT in an academic setting. And I'm glad we're going to connect. We offer a paid fellowship, and a lot of the fellows end up getting MPAs. So this works together really well. I think you're right about Braver Angels. We had a Braver Angels member who was actually wearing a different hat at the time, but she did a session at our student voting summit last fall on de-escalation and having tough conversations. And I was really interested to watch the students working through some personal issues using that framework. Like they were using it for personal and family and friend issues, but also using it as budding leaders. A lot of them were like, I have a person on my working group for our student government who isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. How can I have that tough conversation? And it was, they found it really, really helpful. So, yeah, I just think this is great. Looking forward to working with you. Hopefully we can get this going because I think civics is a major issue, civics education, and anything we can do to do more of that is great. Also, just I'll talk to you, Sam and Mike, about this, but there are working group, nonpartisan C3 working groups around election protection, democracy defense, voting rights, a whole bunch of stuff that already go on in Wisconsin with partners around the state. So, some of that stuff you guys might be interested in.
And while we're going through, I'm just going to add one thing, and thank you for pointing that out, Kristen, particularly the tie-in. And we've, of course, have really tried to reach out and be a centerpiece for other organizations in the state to be able to work together. There's two people I want to point out. We may hear from one of them at some point here that are on. One is Doug Savage, who's worked with from Wisconsin, has worked in the square with democracy building through the Carter Center. It's on the board, and thank you, Doug, for joining us. He's been a good supporter of WisACT, and also Nathan Stock, who has has been the lead coordinator for the 6 states that have worked with each other in sharing best practices that are doing similar projects. Not the same name, similar projects, and it's very interesting on how they've focused. All 6 states have focused a little bit differently, but just the ability to share best practices has really been valuable for all of us. And because of the work that has taken place, is why we are able to have some support for the Whitburn Center and to continue with the project in Wisconsin and in the 5 other states.
So we'd
I
love
want to
to.
interrupt, Allison. I'll let you do. We want to continue to get Kristen. I thank you for that, and there may be some other thoughts too. Is where we go.
Yeah, so we'd love to hear from members on the call. Any thoughts you have, reactions to what we've shared, uh, ideas you have moving forward. Please jump in.
Ron, if you're thinking through some of these still, maybe Nathan. Nathan, I see you're on. You may be driving, but I hope you're not driving sitting like that. That's but maybe you could just give a quick sharing of what the other states and how you see the project continuing and the importance of the project.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Scott. And thanks everybody for jumping on the call with us today. Uh, I would note that the transition of WisACT to the Whitburn Center is part of a larger plan on the part of the Carter Center. This something like this was always in the plan, in the sense that the Carter Center, as Scott mentioned, has seeded networks like this in 5 other states, 6 in total. But we always hoped we would find a good fit for localizing those networks within state institutions. I mean, I'm really excited that the Carter Center's had the resources to get this work off the ground. I'll acknowledge, as the project manager, that the administrative arrangement is sometimes a little awkward, right? Like, I've got my own bureaucracy and leadership and communications department and accountants and all that, and as long as WisACT was not fully de jure independent, it sometimes made decision making slow, and I'll own that. The Carter Center owns that. That's part of why we were conscious of trying to make an investment in something that could come to life with the right people. That's all of you on this call. That's key. And then helping to kind of hand it off to an appropriate host. And we couldn't be more excited to have the Whitburn Center on board in that role. So for us, this is not the end of the Carter Center's investment in this, and I can't can't make a promise and grant it, but I'm pretty sure we will continue to have funding for this work, including to support WisACT in its new home at Whitburn for years to come. So instead of this sort of tight relationship with people on Carter Center consulting contracts, it will be a little bit looser, like us giving a grant, a sub-grant for certain work. But the other nice thing is we'd like to keep the Whitburn Center, including WisACT, in this network of orgs that we have set up, right? As Scott alluded to, it's become a really great platform for sharing lessons learned and looking at how this work can be done across states and what works in Florida, what's worked in North Carolina, right? So as we transition in this way, it's not the end of the relationship. We'll be inviting Whitburn folks to Atlanta, to at least one annual gathering with these other state leaders, right? So we're just really excited for our part that this transition is happening, and excited that it's happening with the Whitburn Center.
Let's
If I might
continue
jump
with
in.
the direction. Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, and sorry to jump in the middle. It just occurred to me that I know some of you from my past life 20 plus years ago when I was the state chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. I've since moved to Milwaukee and have gotten a doctorate in human and organizational systems. And a lot of my focus has been on work around democracy. So I'd love to figure out how I could be more engaged and perhaps even contribute some of my skills and knowledge from that learning that I've done. Thanks.
Thanks, Linda. And I'd love to hear from Kathy Bernier, who put something in the chat that I'd like to hear more about. Kathy, can you jump in?
Sure, I can't seem to get my video to work, so I guess you will just hear my voice. I'm here. I was kind of incognito and just listening. One thing with WisACT, you listen, you learn. So that's great. Menard Center for Constitutional Studies was designed to help educate UW Eau Claire students on constitutional issues. Voting, of course, is one of them. I did have through another organization have sort of a tentative setup to present some information to them, which I was not able to do. However, back when I was in the legislature, I did a lot of work with Article 5. And I did a complete presentation, a 50-minute presentation at the Constitution Center at UW Eau Claire on Article 5 and educate them about what it is and how to amend the Constitution and that sort of thing. So the professor there, and I am forgetting his name, and it will come to me just after I'm done speaking to you. They're always open to having an educational program for students at this Constitution Center. And so if you glean a presentation of whatever sorts to present to students or individuals in the community, because not only are students invited to this, the entire community is invited. So you'll get people from Chippewa Falls and Eau Claire and Osseo and the surrounding area, citizens to attend, as well as students at UW Eau Claire. It's a huge opportunity. And I do note, since I live in northern Wisconsin, that most of your activities are in southern Wisconsin.
Can I just quick respond to that? And Mike, if you want to pop in here too, but I really appreciate the suggestion and the acknowledgement that the majority of the activities have been in the southern part of the state. I actually have been involved with, met Phil, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name, but Philip Recek, I think. So he's the coordinator of the Menard Center at UW Eau Claire. And he and I were part of a training that was focused on how to promote civil dialogue it's called the Pluralist Lab at UW-Madison last October. So I got to meet him and a number of people at a number of different institutions throughout the state across the UW system. And I do think even though we're moving, and housing things in Oshkosh. There's I think a big focus for us on figuring out how we can partner with people across the entire state. And maybe Mike Ford, you might mention the position you're moving into that we think is going to offer a really great opportunity for us to expand in that way.
Yeah, happy to. So I am starting March 10th. I will be the director of the Wisconsin Institute for Citizenship and Civil Dialogue, WICID. And I'll still be housed at UW Oshkosh, but that position is we'll be doing this type of work and facilitating this work, supporting this type of work across all 13 campuses. So I really see this as a way for us to start building this infrastructure up across the state so that we aren't stuck in one institution, we aren't stuck in Madison and Milwaukee, that this can start to be something that really starts to permeate the culture of our universities, each university. Hey, Kathy, there you are. The culture of our universities, but then also the culture of our politics. I know that's a big thing, but I think we want to be ambitious, and I'm very excited to have this connection and keep building this infrastructure. And Kathy, in that role, I know I'm already working with folks at the Menard Center, even though I haven't officially started yet, and that's going to be something that we continue to do.
Any other thoughts or comments? Again, just a reminder, if you haven't done the survey, we'd love to hear your thoughts, especially within the context of what you've learned today about our future home and our relationship with the Whitburn Center.
Of course, if your thoughts come up after this and you're thinking of what should we do, how should we get involved, you can still reach David and I and Allison. We'll be supporting the transition through March, and as is mentioned, still working with the Whitburn Center themselves as on the advisory board. So there are a lot of avenues. We're also continuing to look at and have had discussions with some of the regional advisors throughout the state, the regional coordinators. And there's very much interest. They say the issue's still there, still a concern, they still want to be involved.
There is still plenty.
Cameron, we'd love to hear
Yeah.
what you have to say.
Oh, thank you. I have a question from the Braver Angels point of view. We had been talking to some folks who work with the Tommy Thompson Center that's working with the UW campuses, and I'm curious about how this program that you're describing is related to that or coordinated in some way.
It's interesting, and Mike and Sam, you may want to respond, but the Whitburn Center has a relationship as well with the Thompson Center. So as opposed to detracting, I think this is going to enhance our ability to work closer with the Thompson Center also. And as you know, they're not really a program; they're more of a grant making uh, type of center.
Yeah, I'm happy to fill in on that. So they over we've existed since 2021, and we've received two grants from the Thompson Center at the Whitburn Center to fund research. The first was on developing the local government workforce, and the second one was about developing nonprofit collective impact initiatives specifically focused on rural areas and how we can develop rural nonprofit capacity. And I do think that that's a relationship that we're going to continue to cultivate at the Whitburn Center. And I think fits into this larger goal of integrating more of these institutes within the system towards this common goal of, I guess, restoring faith in our democratic institutions and democratic processes. So yes, I think that they need to be involved and be a critical partner.
I think something also really interesting about the Thompson Center's model that I've been thinking about in the future of UWO is that they are on UW-Madison's campus, they are a grant-making authority and have this statewide focus, but also they're a registered student organization on UW-Madison's campus. So they have students that are hosting events that are reaching out to other students, but they're also this larger organization across the state. So that model is something I've been looking at of how do we tie in students, but also keep WisACT going, not as a student engagement organization, but have that be a really strong arm of what we do. That's something the Thompson Center does really well.
So you can see,
Erica.
you can
Oh,
see as
Scott, sorry.
we discuss it, why we're excited about the direction this is taking. Um, well, it may sound like the Carter Center is stepping back, they will still be supportive, but this should, to the reverse side, really allow us to broaden the base in more of a statewide movement, as opposed to having, I mean, I've always thought running a business or anything, you don't want to be totally dependent upon on one supplier, one organization. And this will really truly allow us to spread our wings a little bit more. So,
Thank you all
Erica?
for your answers and for um, I'm very excited about the statewide nature of all this collaboration and would like to make sure everybody knows that Braver Angels has great curriculum. We don't have a structure, like you said about we want a movement, not an organization, right? There's not a structure to Braver Angels. We're just providing materials and curriculum and free labor of moderators and presenters. So that's something that can be a resource to everything that you're doing.
Can I want a quick follow-up and again reiterate, Cameron, I'm taking notes and I'm going to reach out to you. But I also want to highlight that with the Thompson Center, Mike and I haven't completely connected on this yet, but I am planning to submit another grant that focuses directly on the WisACT work that we're doing to try to expand our resources for it for next year. And I see a lot of overlap, so perhaps some folks on this call could work with me on that to really focus on the expansion statewide.
Erica, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something that the Wisconsin Academy of Sciences, Arts, and Letters will be doing. It's similar, but it's a slightly different approach. So I wanted to just share a little bit about it. So it's not coming directly at the idea of safe elections overtly, but more looking at how can we bring people together around common ground in a nonpartisan statewide fashion. So we're going to be exploring two major themes. One is home. That's kind of a working title. It's more a subject than a title. And then in our next fiscal year, which starts July 1st, and we'll explore that theme up through July 4th, 2026, which is the America 250. And then we'll, subsequent to that, be exploring the theme of water. And I mention this here because the Wisconsin Academy, even though we're not affiliated with the University of Wisconsin-Madison or the UW system, we have long, century plus history in collaborating with UW systems and higher education. And so we'll be looking at how are we getting to the issues around home in an intersectional fashion, which is what the Academy does through the sciences, arts, and letters, and really looking at what civil discourse do we want to do, the issue of access to housing, affordable housing stock around the state is a top issue in communities all across the state, rural, suburban, and urban. And there's many good entities doing work around this. We want to see how we can explore this issue in a statewide fashion, connecting communities that are often pitted against one another and tend to feel there's opportunity for greater alignment there and common ground building. So we will be looking at how can we explore this important issue in a civil discourse through civil discourse in communities around the state. And it's really essential for us at the Wisconsin Academy that we do this in a way that builds hope, that we show models that are in place or underway that really are addressing this important issue plaguing the state. And that will also give communities a chance to step into the light and have a moment to showcase what's happening in their community that they're particularly proud of, whether it's something like the Bayview development here in Madison, Wisconsin, which is a predominantly Hmong community, that housing development that was created with a lot of civil discourse, or other examples from, like I said, communities around the state. So I mention that because we really do see this as a way to address the polarization and the demonization of people in other parts of the political spectrum by bringing people together around common ground and something that is impacting the communities and individuals around the state. So I just wanted to put that forward. It's really akin to, I think, a lot of the work of WisACT and Leader Ethics and other entities involved here. We would be happy to talk offline as we develop this initiative. We're at the point now where we're having conversations to determine what some of this might look like, and who might be some anchor partners and funders on this effort. So there's some things we know we will be doing because we have a couple of exhibitions at the James Watrous Gallery that speak to home. As I mentioned, we come at this through letters and arts and sciences. So we're looking at what is the sciences around home. It's a broad initiative, and there's a lot of space for partnership, and I do imagine that some of what we'll be doing is just amplifying what's already out there, not initiating. So I'm happy to talk with anyone about that, but I do think that it's really aligned with a lot of the goals of WisACT and some of the others of you in the room. So I wanted to just mention that.
Thank you, Erica. And I did want to give a background for Erica, who's been one of the partners of WisACT as we've gone through this and how we build democracy and do these things. And it's only because we ran out of time that we weren't able to work closer on a number of issues. Things started moving very fast for many of us. But we look forward to continuing to work with you in an ongoing fashion. And Sam, we've now made the connection. And you've mentioned a number of other partners that are listed on the WisACT website right now as well. So we've got the Academy listed, the Wisconsin Council of Churches, the MacGyver Institute, you've got Leader Ethics, Save Our Republic. So there's a number of groups that we've brought together with the same overall goal. So we're looking for that type of collaboration. So thank you very much, Erica. Thanks.
I was just going to mention too, would any of you who, and we'll get to Alex in just one sec, would any of you who are willing to put your contact information, your email in the chat for collaboration purposes? Alex?
Thank you, David. So I've noticed both in the past several years that even when people de-escalate and find common ground in the form of abstract ideals that they agree on, they still struggle to find actionable common ground. And so that leads the conflict to reemerge, just bubble back up. And so to address that problem, as part of the Visionary Vocabularies program, I've been using a 3-step values reconciliation method and a handful of foundational concepts to help people peel back their assumptions about what they want and what others want, and then find ways to make the situation better for everyone. So I found that seems to address the problem.
Thanks, Alex. That sounds super interesting. Well, thanks for all the contact info in the chat. Barry?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I'm Barry Burden. I'm a professor here in political science at UW-Madison. I'll just throw one more idea on the table for things that might be tackled if this is not going too far astray. I think there would be real value in training people, maybe students, maybe adults who are not students, in media literacy. A concern I have is that the public has sort of sequestered itself into different media outlets they prefer, and there's a real distrust of other outlets. We've also seen local media really fall apart in Wisconsin and other places. Local papers are struggling. reporters have been laid off. That model is probably not going to work as a way to collect news in the future. And there's some good research showing that the decline of local news contributes to polarization, makes government work less efficiently at the local level when there aren't people covering city council and court meetings and hearings and those kinds of things. And public knowledge about their local governments and state governments is less when those media fall away. It's true even at the state level, where we've seen the state press corps decline from probably a few dozen reporters who are in the state capitol every day to now I think it's probably less than 10 who are there. They simply can't cover it all, and people aren't subscribing to their outlets anyway. So, if this could be maybe folded into that second piece that Allison talked about of public, training the public, maybe doing public education around how government works, the role of the press and all of that, the First Amendment rights could be part of that as well. So I think there's a whole bundle of things that could be tackled. It becomes ambitious very quickly, so I don't want to take us off track, but it just seems so worthwhile to me.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's well, you know where I came from, so it's close to my heart. I have had some preliminary discussions with George Stanley at Wisconsin Watch, my former boss at the Journal Sentinel, who's now running a nonprofit news organization in Madison, based in Madison, that has some ambition to be more statewide and really thinks is thinking very seriously about how to empower local people to do citizen coverage in areas that don't have good news coverage any longer. So there's a lot of talk around the state going on and about all of that. But I totally agree. I think media literacy is just paramount, and we need to figure out collectively, all of us, not just our group, but others, a way to address that. Nathan?
Just a quick point, and Barry, it's great to see you. It's been a while. The Carter Center has an excellent media literacy training module that's ready to go. The consultant who developed the material herself is a great trainer. Maybe we didn't, I can't recall. We've done this with a few states, and it's really well done. And what is smart about it is it really takes a rather apolitical lens. It's more about how do you evaluate all the stuff that pops at you on the internet and not get scammed, right? And it's great. So happy to circle back on that. And to my point a moment ago about, Whitburn staying in the network, the family, as it were, these are the kinds of things that the Carter Center will still bring to the table as a part of the relationship. So we can organize this, I think, and it could be quite good.
That's great. Thank you, Nathan. Well, we are very close to time here. Anyone else who'd like to jump in? Any other comments? We really appreciate your engagement today. This was very helpful, and it's gratifying to see all these committed people on the call today.
I will just put out another reminder that I sent the link to the survey in the chat. If you have yet to fill that out, I would love to hear what you think. And then just echoing what David said, I appreciate you all so much, not only for making the time today, but for making the time every day for WisACT. Maybe not every day, maybe a couple days a week. But we just appreciate your time and your effort and all the expertise that all the folks in this call bring to the table. It's a really, really special group. So Mike says every day, yeah. But thank you all, and I hope you have a good rest of your afternoon, and you'll be hearing from us soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.